First thing we encountered, the problem that we encountered on TikTok was the blue tick. We went to TikTok and we spoke to them and we were like, we need to get verified. What do we need to do? The moment we got the blue tick on the account, trustworthiness, reputation, like people would see the blue tick and they would just keep moving. They didn't like the verified at all. Like the brand name is part of it. Like Kotaku's got a reputation online. And even though we were completely separate from the US site, people still see the name and they want to move on.
Like, what would you say that someone who wants to get into gaming journalism, where's the best place to start?
I think if you're still determined to do the blog thing, then like street press kind of stuff is still a great way to get in, or at the very least get started and get some bylines behind you, because that's really important for building out your portfolio.
Is it something that you would recommend someone getting into now, or would you suggest go on to more video?
There was a lot of discussion about like, could you in good conscience recommend somebody get into games journalism in 2024? And the answer was honestly,
all right, everybody, welcome back to the Creator Dashboard. I am the jury, and we've got a very interesting episode today. I'm going to be interviewing David Smith here, who is the ex-managing editor for Kotaku Australia, when Kotaku Australia was a thing. How are you doing today, David?
I'm doing very well, mate. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. So, the reason why I said this was going to be a different episode is because we're not interviewing your traditional creator in the video sense. David here worked with written content. I guess though, David, you do a bit of video work now as well.
I do, yeah. Like my whole career, I've been in games media for 11 years now, and I've been on the journo side for almost all of that. Video only really entered the picture in the last few years when we started the Kotaku Australia TikTok page. That was sort of like business mandated. It was sort of like that's where go where the ball is going, not like go where the puck's going to be, not where it is, kind of thing.
Yep.
Video was kind of where everybody was headed, so we were like, let's try and get out ahead of this. The US site didn't have a TikTok. I don't believe they still do. They weren't really doing anything in terms of video outside of like whatever they could embed in their own website. So we were like, well, okay, there's a patch of clean air. Let's get in there and start looking at how we can do stuff there. So that was really my first foray into video. But beyond that, yeah, like over a decade of experience working as a journo on different websites as a freelancer, as a full-timer. Yeah, that is sort of the career overview to date.
Awesome. So what kind of happened to Kotaku? Like it shut down like 2 years ago, 1 year ago now?
Yeah, Kotaku Australia was shut down a little bit over 6 months ago. It was July of 2024. We were sort of shut down as part of like wider redundancies at Nine. It wasn't actually a reflection on us, our numbers, like how any of that was doing. We were still pulling in well in excess of, like we were pulling in between 1.2 and 1.7 million Australian readers per month.
Right.
We were rated on Australian readers. We were not rated on international. Like international was considerably higher. So in terms of like our numbers, we were doing just fine. And that was true for all of the sites in the group that were made redundant at that time. It was just a matter of like, these are licensed sites. It costs the company money. Nine was looking to make cuts in editorial, and unfortunately we were an easy target because they could cut everything back to just pedestrian, and that brand could go on its own as it had been originally. A real bummer, to be sure. There's several of us still looking for work from across a number of those sites, myself included. I've just been doing a bunch of like freelance work and just kind of enjoying a little bit of time off because It's been sort of the first major break I've managed to have in like my entire professional career in games media, for sure. But yeah, like it definitely kind of, I don't know that it came out of the blue. We had rumblings that Nine was looking to make redundancies, and I've spoken about this on other pods as well. So yeah, there's still a few of us looking around for work from various sites across the group that were let go at that time, myself included. I've been doing a bunch of freelance work for different sites. You've probably seen me pop up on Games Hub a couple of times. Those guys have been really good about taking a few different freelance feature pitches from me, which has been really good for keeping my hand in terms of writing. Beyond that, I decided to take what we'd built on the Kotaku Au TikTok and start sort of doing more of that for myself. I'd found, at least on the Kotaku Au TikTok, that people liked the sort of more sensible kind of down to earth approach to news that we'd
Mm.
been doing. There wasn't
Yep.
a lot of sensationalism or anything. We were kind of just doing news and what we'd always done on the website, doing news and trying to show people cool shit. Like that was ultimately what it came down to. That was always like the heart and soul of the site. So we were just trying to do more of that, and it turned out that it was working pretty well. So I kind of just took that editorial direction that I'd been working with, that I'd been working on with our team that went before the site went away, and
Yep.
kind of started doing that on my own. That's been going okay so far. We've been doing okay with that. I've been posting across TikTok, Insta, and YouTube Shorts as I go, just sort of like learning the tools, getting more familiar with DaVinci Resolve, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's been me for sort of the last 6 months or so. Just like feeling that space out. A lot of PR friends that I worked with in my media career have been really, really cool about coming on that little journey with me. So yeah, there's been a lot of support behind me as well, and a lot that like I've heard from folks at places like PAX and stuff like that too. So that's been really cool. So it's a story that starts kind of dour, like the site goes away and everything's kind of bad for a little bit there, but it does get better
Yeah.
towards the end. It's
Oh,
going all right so far.
that's fantastic to hear. So, how are you finding that transition into the video content? So, you mentioned before that you're using a lot of what you've learned from Kotaku,
Yeah.
and I agree with you that the down to earth stuff that's working. I can completely understand why, and you see that everywhere. Like the down to earth, the more real, 'cause especially over the last 5 years, everything's become a little bit like too mainstream.
Mm.
Everyone's becoming too polished, and when that happens, it loses personality.
Yeah,
And
for
so
sure.
I think the kind of shift back into being a little bit more personable, it's it's I don't know, it's a good transition.
Yeah,
It's like
for
it
sure.
makes it everyone's just like, oh, I feel connection again.
Yeah.
And I don't know, do you think that's more of a ebb and flow, like a
It could
spike and
be.
trough thing?
It could be. I mean, it's hard for me to say. I haven't been doing it all that long. Like, it's in
Mm,
terms of like, at least on the video side, it would be hard for me to sort of make a determination one way or the other. I know it's been going okay for me so far. Um, One of the things I tried to do when I started like working on my own TikTok was looking back at what we'd done on the Kotaku Au one and just seeing like just identifying the niches, because that's part of any good editorial strategy is identify your niche to start with, and then we can work from there. What niche are we trying to fit into? What is the audience that we're serving?
mm,
um you start looking at that, and then from there it's a fairly like straightforward process of like, okay, well, what's the thing that nobody else is doing? Nobody else is doing the Philip DeFranco of video games news, really. Like,
yeah.
maybe Skill Up, but even beyond that, Skill Up is probably the closest, I think, to like what I was looking at doing, like, which was games in a normal tone of voice. At a certain point, what I'd found, particularly about games coverage on like YouTube and TikTok, was people had conflated character, personality with just being loud, like
Yeah.
really just like yelling at you. And
They
if they
go that,
weren't
have you heard of this game that's coming out?
like
Why don't you
really,
check this game out and play
oh,
it? And it's like a zombie survival game. And yeah,
oh
I
my
get it.
god,
I get turned off by that kind of voice.
videos built around SEO, which is crazy, right? Like it's not even like search engine optimization anymore. We're gaming an algorithm, which is a totally different thing, and yet those same SEO rules seem to apply, and that kind of stuff also turns me off. I haven't done a lot of algo chasing. That was one thing that I was kind of
Mm,
like, I'm just going to see what the news is for the day, and maybe we'll
yep.
talk about that. I've done a lot of business reporting, which not a huge demand for that, but I've found a little audience of people already who are looking for more businessy stuff. Like
Yep.
I've talked about, I made a cold shot late last year about like Ubisoft's overall financial health after the first delay for Assassin's Creed Shadows and the
Yep.
financial reporting that they put out at the time. I kind of looked over that, did what I would have done on the old side, and was like, this does not seem like Ubisoft's in a very good place. And let's talk about that, and let me explain to you like how some of these parts of the business actually work, because I don't see a lot of people talking about the business of games. It's
Mm,
always greedy publishers, lazy devs. The first one is true. The second one is not. And I'm going to try and help you like
yeah.
delineate between the two.
Just
Um,
yeah, and obviously that helps
yeah,
everyone out because like yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
it's
no, that's cool. That's really cool. It's cool that you've got like that thinking about all the way through that. I guess the experience you've got through Kotaku's helped you kind of help propel you into that
yeah,
kind of
for
into that
sure.
scene.
For sure. Like I am grateful. We fought pretty hard to begin with when the business first floated the idea of doing the TikTok. Every single one of us was just like, I don't want to do vertical video, man. Like, we're journalists. This is not a face for camera. Like, I'm supposed to be behind a keyboard doing my thing. Like, it's not really where I feel like I'm supposed to be. But it did kind of opened that door for me. Like, it made me feel a lot more comfortable on camera. It made me feel sort of a lot more comfortable in just hearing my own voice back
Yep.
doing edits and things like that, which as anybody who's doing this job, I'm sure you know as well,
Yeah.
is the first like wall you've got to climb over is just getting used to the sound of your own goddamn voice.
Oh, it's a hard one. It's
Yeah.
like the first 3, 4 edits you like big edits you do of your own voice. Yeah, it's so hard.
God, do I sound like that? Yeah, I know. Like
Yeah.
everyone's got to hear this all the time. Oh God. But it was instructive. It was really, really helpful to build out that skill set, and then that was something I could take with me when the job was ultimately taken away from us, which
Mm,
has been very, very good. It's also served me well on like podcasts like this, like where I can sort of jump on, help out wherever I can, and try and sort of offer a bit of extra expertise. Whatever I have in the video space, I've only been like doing it kind of full-ish time for about 6 months or so.
yeah. Well, I mean that's the thing. So like I think you've got the strategy mind behind it. You've got the understanding of what it takes to make good content. So like turning that into video, like there are people who do faceless videos. There are people who do.
Mhm.
You can do the minimal amount of editing, but as long as the content you provide is actually good content, useful content,
Yeah,
that's all what's important. So I guess in a sense, you've done it in the right order, where you've got the content, and then you're like, okay, how do I tell people about this content? And
how do you
now
apply
you're
it?
going
Yeah,
from just writing to talking about it in video.
yeah.
So I
The,
guess
the
just there's different skill sets in that.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, the writing also helps because it kind of allows me to cut through to what the story is quite quickly. I can
Mm,
self-edit
yep.
pretty well on the fly. Even like though my preferred method is to turn the camera on, like understand the story, turn the camera on, explain it, and then edit myself down as I go.
Yep.
It's still like that 11 years of experience just on the tools, writing blogs every single day has served me pretty well. Like, I can get rid of that. This we don't need. That
Yep.
is probably not the most important information
Do
here.
you
Like
write scripts for your videos, or do you kind
I
of go off
d-
your head?
I did when I started. Now I'm going off the dome a lot of the time, which has been different. I just wanted to try that out for a little while and see how I felt because I was writing the script and it kind of started to feel like a bit of a safety net, and I felt like I could see myself reading. I felt like
Mm,
I could see my eyes moving on camera, and I didn't
reading.
like it.
Yep.
Um, it just
Yep.
yeah, it wasn't working, and I was kind of like, if I can just understand the story, which I did every day when I was working on blogs was just like understand the story first and then we can start putting like a piece together on it if we're doing a news item or something. Apply the same skill set. We're just going to do it to camera and we'll do it off the dome and see how that goes. That has felt much more comfortable for me.
Mm,
I have noticed a few blind spots. Like there's certain times when like I'll watch a video back a couple of days after it goes up, just as I go through the analytics and see how different things are doing. And I'll notice that I've left something out that I probably should have left in, or like
yeah.
detail that I've missed uh, an important point to the story that would have added some extra context that might have been useful. There's always stuff you can look back on, but it's
Yeah.
definitely like that's definitely a weakness that I felt in that approach. So it's not all perfect, right?
Yeah.
Like,
It's probably the best approach for the overall delivery though.
yeah,
Like you said, like you feel more comfortable. So that inherently is going to have the added effect of you just coming across more confident.
yeah,
Like, and you're understanding the story properly. So you're able to tell the story as if you're just having a conversation with someone about it.
yeah,
I think that's the important thing. And that's why TikTok is doing so well. Uh,
definitely.
because they're like people are able to just connect on a more personal level. And that's probably why, like, you go back 10, 12, 13, 14 years ago, why YouTube did so well initially,
Mm,
because there was that raw connection. So I think we went through like this phase of like everything became really, really, really polished. And then everyone
mm,
started competing against each other on who was more polished. and now everyone's just craving like that rawness. And I'm seeing it pop up like the raw material, like the raw material. That's probably why live streaming is at where it's at now, because it's that raw kind of
Yeah,
unedited, unpolished kind of content.
we certainly found that on the Kotaku AU account. It's very different doing that kind of stuff on a brand account than it is on your own. The first thing we encountered, the problem that we encountered on TikTok was the blue tick. Like Nine wanted us verified. So we went to TikTok and we spoke to them and we were like, we need to get verified. What do we need to do? They helped us out with that. We got the blue tick. The moment we got the blue tick on the account, that was a palpable hit to like trustworthiness, reputation. Like people would see the blue tick and they would just keep moving. Like they didn't like the verified
Mm.
at all. Like the brand name was part of it. Like Kotaku's got a reputation online, and even though we were completely separate from the US site, people still see the name and they want to move on. But the blue tick among people who were not so familiar with the brand, man, that would be moving people on so fast, to the extent that I started asking if we could get rid of it toward the end. It would make
Get
it a
rid of
lot.
it.
Yeah, literally, like, can we take the blue tick away, because it's actually like I feel like it's more of a hindrance than a help.
Mm.
So when it came to my own personal account, I was just like, well, it's not getting verified. I want to be able to use like the commercial music sounds if I want to like hop on a trend or something like that, because you
Yeah,
can't do that if you got a blue tick. You can't use any of the music that people are using in trends because it's all licensed. You can't use it.
that's right. Yeah.
Um, that was a hurdle. So immediately I was like, well, it's not worth getting the blue tick. The other side of it was the like that kind of visceral sense that really I've only seen on TikTok, of that feeling of people having just picked up the phone and started talking, like they just hit record and they've just started talking. That worked so
Yeah.
well. Anytime we were doing videos like that, people would engage, specifically because it didn't feel polished. It didn't feel like someone had taken the time to set up a ring light and a camera and a microphone on a boom arm, even though that's exactly what I'm doing in my videos. People were still,
Yeah.
it really, like the immediacy of sort of looking like someone had just grabbed their phone,
Mm.
grabbed people. It pulled them in immediately. And now people have perfected the art of that too. Like
Yeah.
people have perfected on TikTok the art of making a video look rough around the edges when it's actually not.
It's still high
Um,
polish. Yeah.
yeah, like they've mastered the art of that. Like you've seen a million videos that start with looking like someone has just picked up their phone and then they look into it.
Yeah.
That's the
But
Gen Z version of the,
that's like the fourth take.
yeah, yeah, the fourth take. It's the Gen Z version of like the millennial pause. Like they
Yeah.
all know how to do it.
Yep.
Um, I don't know how to do it, so I'm just like, I'm not gonna worry about that. I'm just gonna do it my own way, and we'll see how we go. And it seems to be going okay. But like all of these little things, these were things that I was compiling while we were working on the Kotaku AU page with me, Emily, Alina, who was our social media legend at Kotaku AU, Alina Matthew. She was like, we brought her on specifically to be like leading the charge. She had to lead the charge across three brands, not just us. She was working on Gizmodo AU, the tech site, and Lifehacker AU, the lifestyle
Yeah.
website.
Right.
So three very different remits for sure. We were all sort of in our own little pod because we were licensed from the same site, which is Geo Media.
Mm.
Um, and so she was able to work across all three of those brands, and that gave her sort of a huge spread of topics to talk about. But games was what she was personally interested in, and so a lot of the time she'd be coming back to us with like really cool ideas for different things we could do, different things we could try. And that also taught us very, very quickly, like once you've identified your niche, that's great, hit it and hit it hard, but also don't be afraid to experiment within that niche. Like it seemed like TikTok in particular really rewarded that. Whenever we
Yeah.
did kind of branch out a little bit, try something different, as long as it was the familiar faces, as long as it was me on the screen or Emily on the screen or Alina on the screen, people would respond to that. They'd be like, we only
Yeah.
want to see you guys. If any of the commercial team jumped in to do um like an e-commerce video, like talk about a product that had been sponsored or something like that, because my editorial edict was like, none of the editorial faces will be selling anything. Like
All right. We might need to pause
we
again
can't sell
there.
product. It's a trustworthiness thing. Like they can't trust anything I say. If I come on and I say, guys,
Yeah.
you need to buy the latest Xbox controller, come
Right.
and get
This.
it. Like they can't trust me anymore. It needs to be someone they haven't seen.
Yeah. I guess one thing that I want to kind of dive into a little bit is what where do you think the current status of like your traditional journalism is, not only in Australia but in the world? Because
Mm,
it's like we're talking about YouTube off air. and YouTube journalism, there's a lot of like content creators who are doing it and have more authority
Mhm.
as a journalist than mainstream journalism. So,
Yeah.
like, how do you feel it's changed in the last few years?
It's look, as far as like the place that games journalism and particularly Australian games journalism is in, pretty dire at the moment, at
Mm,
least on the commercial side. Like
yeah.
a mate of mine, Jack Ryan, described Kotaku AU going away as like the meteor striking the earth moment for games journalism in Australia. It was kind of an institution, and then it went away. There's still
Mm,
commercial outlets out there, and there's different things that they're doing. Games Hub is very much more like still trying to do the kind of reporting that Kotaku AU was doing at its best, like actual
mm,
reporting, going out, talking to devs, telling those stories, which I think is really important and valuable. The unfortunate side of that is that a lot of as I know very, very well from trying to publish those stories on Kotaku,
yep.
is that it can be difficult to draw traffic to them. The Google
Mm,
algorithm, which a lot of those sites are built on now or built around or reliant on, just will not reward stories like that. It doesn't want that. It wants SEO. It wants marketing. It wants like less journalism and more sort of pushing of product. And there's definitely websites out there, particularly in Australia, that are better at that than others.
yep.
Like there's also a lot of like smaller sites. I hesitate to use the phrase like um what's enthusiast press. It just seems like a dirty term, but it's
Enthusiast
a
press. What is that like?
it's instructive in the sense that it's websites that are more or less run by fans, which is why I don't really like using that term. It's
Yep.
true in some cases, in some respects, like, but there are plenty of those sites that really do want to try and hold themselves to a certain journalistic standard. There are others that don't really mind so much, but there are
Mm,
plenty that do. And it's even tougher for those sites. The smaller sites are, they're doing it tougher trying to get traffic through the door than ever. It's pretty bleak. And you do see in these moments that there are sites that try and make a go of it as independents, like Aftermath, which was founded by a bunch of former Kotaku US writers, including Luke Plunkett, who is an Aussie journo. He was at Kotaku for a very long time. He was there from about 2006 onward. He was there pretty much right through my entire run as well. I think he finished up in 2023. Um, like that's kind of where we're at now, where you've got to make if good games journalism wants to survive, then it does feel like it's got to take up this burgeoning subscription model. It's a double-edged sword in the sense that if
mm,
you wanted to do this purely as an Australian angle, like if you wanted to make Kotaku AU but subscription led, that would be quite difficult, I think. We are such a small market. We are
yeah.
a small population. It's difficult to make the kind of subscription money that would pay a full-time wage, even a single full-time wage from just Australian subscribers. You would almost necessarily have to take the aftermath path and take on a global outlook. Then you lose that Australian, like those Australian stories which we
Yeah.
want told and need told because we have such a like cool and really vibrant development space like all around the
Yeah.
country. It's not just Melbourne used to be the development hotbed. Now it's everywhere. Brisbane's got great devs. Sydney's finally getting some government funding through the door. Perth and Adelaide are still toiling away. They're both coming up really, really quickly. Like there should be greater spotlights shone on those. And as far as the sort of more traditional blogs and websites go, it's harder and harder and harder to do that work, get traffic through the door, and still build revenue from that. So that
Yeah.
sounds very doom and gloom. I do want to say every single person who's still out there doing that in the trenches, writing those blogs day after day, in my opinion, is braver than the troops. They're so good. They're so smart. They're so talented. Their work is well worth reading, and it's all still free. So little of it is behind a paywall, which is crazy to me. Like, I think
Yep.
we do need to get used to the idea of paying for good journalism again. I think that's something that's like going to become more and more and more of a necessity as time goes by. The internet kind of tricked people into thinking that like journalism was free and always had been, but it hasn't. Like
No, it's
before the
just
internet
we've
came
always
along,
paid in some way. Like we've always paid with
people
ads.
were
Like
buying
ads has been the
newspapers.
last. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
I
yeah, they were
think we
paying for
just
newspapers. Yeah.
I think we need to sort of like move back to something like that. And I know it's difficult from like a vendor perspective, like in terms of like cache throughput. It is difficult to just have. I wish you could have it so that it was just like if I see an article that I really want to read, and all I have to do is throw them $1 or something, it'll let me
Mm,
in and let me read that one specific piece. But unfortunately, like vendor fees and all the rest of it make it very, very difficult. It's quite
yeah,
complicated to do that. Luke Plunkett had a great thread about that on Blue Sky last week because people were asking, like, why can't I just pay like 50 cents to read the article? There's actually a good reason why you can't. And it comes down to like money and how much of it changes hands and where it's got to go and the systems that drive it.
yeah,
From the other side, YouTube feels like it's been doing a pretty good job, although algorithmically it does make it feel like a lot of the same problems that are cropping up on Google. Of course, it's Google that owns YouTube as well. So
yep,
why wouldn't the problems be transferable? Are cropping up on YouTube as well. You've got to be like, people are using like a program to SEO their, like the titles of their videos in a way that makes them more clicky, more like eyeball ripping, and people will click on those. People have got to like, in the Mr. Beast style, change up their thumbnails after like 18 hours or
mm,
whatever it is. You leave a thumbnail up there when the video goes live, and then you change it after a time to something else that will hopefully draw eyeballs in. Even the content itself, like as we were sort of talking about off air, can be then in terms of the content, people are finding that like if it's not inflammatory, it tends to struggle. This is something that like I've tried to
what do you
build.
mean by inflammatory?
If it's not necessarily like, here's why a particular game that's coming out is bad, here's why I don't like this, here is why such and such a thing is woke, it's really,
Yeah,
really
yeah,
hard to push through the YouTube algorithm in the gaming space. And this, of course, has like a pretty deleterious effect on the tenor of the conversation that you have around
mm,
games on that platform. It's really, really
yeah,
hard to
and
have a
it
sensible convo about games on YouTube.
yeah, and it makes it like either really one party or the other. Like when games are an art, which is so like up to the individual to like it or not. Like,
Yeah,
this person says this game is woke, so the game should be cancelled or the game is bad. It's like, well,
yeah,
that's not necessarily true, and it might not necessarily even be woke. It's just that's what's been written in the title, and someone's
that's
hung on to that piece of detail.
yeah. And guess what? They've got them 1.3 million views because they said that, whether it's true or not,
Yeah,
right? Like at the end of the day, it's not
that's
really
right.
about like servicing the game or that audience. It's about driving those
Yeah,
views
it's
through
not
the
even.
video.
It's actually not even like you said it right there. It's not even about servicing the audience. Like the audience don't actually like they don't need to be told that this game is good by this particular person's standards. They want to be told that they are going to enjoy the game or not. That's what they're
Yeah,
looking for. So you've it's creating this kind of like consumer that's so they're looking for their confirmation bias. They're like, I don't think I'll
yeah,
like this game. I'm going to look for a reason why I don't like this game. And
yeah.
they don't even get the chance to explore it and experience that for themselves.
No,
Like, and that's the unfortunate thing. Like, people might miss out on a game, the
yeah,
best game ever, simply because one person on the internet
yeah,
didn't think they would like it. And
yeah.
I say that they didn't think they would like that because
Hmm.
people make these comments and claims at the first trailer. Like The Witcher
Yeah,
3, 4 was a good example. People were
I
like, I don't
know.
like this game because of Siri. And it's like, it was always going to be Siri.
There's
What do
always
you
going to
want
be
about?
Siri, but law
Like,
reasons. But who gives a shit? Who
no,
cares?
that's the whole point. That's the whole
Yeah.
point. Like, the law is that so the witches were all like they were dying out because they couldn't make new witches.
Hmm.
And traditionally there were no female witches. The whole point is that it was an impossible thing that became possible because of Siri.
Yeah,
That's the whole precipice of the story. So
yeah,
by law, yeah, it's not meant to be, but that's why it's a thing.
yeah. Also, every part of The Witcher 3 where you played as Siri was sick as shit. Shut up. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
honestly,
Literally, like she's gonna be like OP. Like the problem they're gonna have is how they're gonna make her weaker, so you don't
yeah.
feel like you're just dominating the entire game.
You build it back up. I know it's going to be a
uh,
Metroid game where they like take all of your powers away at the start and then you build them back up.
yeah.
But no, a good point.
But
The
like,
other side of that too, I think, is that like, I, games are a hobby like any other, and if you're into any hobby, hobbies are expensive, right? People want to know,
Mm,
like you said, am I going to enjoy this game or not? But frequently through the lens of, is it going to be worth my time, worth my money, not just my time, which is tough.
yeah,
It's hard to deny, particularly in a cost of living crisis, that's a component, right? That's something that people need to be
yeah.
thinking about. And if they're going to charge me 100 Australian dollars for a game, yeah, I want to know that like it's going to reach at least a certain bar of quality before I slam down that kind of money.
Mm.
Have we missed a trick in making it so transactional?
Well,
Maybe
so
pushing product is,
I think both sides of the journalism coin, whether or not it's an individual doing journalism things or if it's like the companies probably given themselves a bad name by like positively reviewing things that might not necessarily have needed like warranted a
mm,
positive review and people calling them out on that.
mhm,
And so like the trust has gone. So I think you mentioned earlier that Kotaku got a bit of a name for itself, not necessarily Kotaku AU, but Kotaku for like similar kinds of things. So obviously there's a bit of a trust. So people are going to look elsewhere for
yeah,
their game because obviously people want the information.
yeah.
So how do you think there is a way for like traditional journalism to kind of bring that back?
It's I think the best way we can go about it, and we kind of already talked a little bit about it, is that subscription model. I think like if you've read
Mm,
like any of the stuff the guys over at Aftermath are doing, if you've read any of the stuff that um, sites like Defector or even 404 Media are producing, like all of that is
mm,
subscription based stuff, and they're able to do the kind of journalism that even Kotaku AU was doing 10 years ago, right? Like
yeah,
back before Google. Well, I mean, Google was doing like the SEO thing at the time. It just wasn't the be all and end all. It wasn't the only way
yeah,
to squeeze traffic
because
out of their algorithm. And it kind of
I
feels like it's
guess
going back to that.
because I feel like so yeah, I know that Google and YouTube are changing. They're going more to the EAT kind of
Yes.
like model where it's the entertainment based and
Yeah.
educational based content, which is
Yeah.
good.
So they
SEO is
say.
becoming less and less because they they've recognized that people are just gaming the system, and
Yeah.
that's obviously creating trash content. Like, there's been a number of times I'll open up a blog article and it's like, "Oh, this game remake's available now." I'm like, "Oh, that's sick." I open it up. It's like, "You can download this remake mod." I was like, "Oh, that's just baited me in," and it doesn't tell me that until like the bottom. And it's like, ah. So like, there's
That was
obviously
a
a lot of
struggle.
there's a
That
lot of
was
trash
such
like
a
that,
struggle.
and I think with like AI content becoming more and more prevalent,
Uh,
the 95% of shit content's just getting bigger. So like
this
Google are
is
recognizing they want to make
this
sure
is
that
something that we talked about internally for sure. Like at Pedestrian, like particularly was like the AI advent kicked off. It's very much a case of like whether we want it or not, and I certainly don't. The genie's kind of out of the bottle, and it's going to
mm,
be like a real kind of like wheat from the chaff situation as far as that goes. The good journos are going to
yep,
have to rise to the top, and they will.
yep,
You will be able to pick them out from an AI lineup immediately because their work will be so fucking superlative compared to the AI slop you're going to be getting served up on Google every day. What that means is
yep,
that there's also a lot of journos who are quite content doing SEO work that are going to find themselves, I think, out of work pretty quickly. We've already
yeah,
seen like a number of consequential redundancies across games media right across the world in the last 12 months. It will continue. It's going to
yeah,
be the good ones that stick around. It's going to be the good ones that survive that particular apocalypse. What it looks like on the other side of that, I'm not too sure. I feel at the moment, as I've said, I
mm,
think that subscription model is probably the way to go. It has its limits. Like people can only subscribe to so much stuff in their life. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and
yep,
everything feels like it's got its hand out asking for subscription money now. So there is an upper limit even on that. Um, there's still
yeah,
problems to be solved. I think it's a massively transitional period for what was sort of traditional or digital media.
yep,
And yeah, we're kind of in the thick of it now. There's no easy answers on that one, I'm afraid. It's all a bit
no,
in flux, but it does feel like there's certain things that you can point to. The good journos will survive. The really strong subscription based outlets will make it. Um,
yep.
but everybody's kind of got to
Well, I
have a
guess that's
plan.
like it's always like I guess the quality is AI is an interesting like a lot of marketers and top end marketers, they always say like you're not people are going to lose their jobs to AI, are going to lose their jobs to people using AI is the kind
Mm,
of thing they're saying. And I don't necessarily think like I use AI, but I don't like using AI to create original content
mhm,
because I think my personal touch, my personal voice is what would make the content better. And I think a lot of people um I think that's what's going to separate the good content from the bad is like the personal touch because nobody wants to be served AI slot. Nobody wants that. And that there is the reason why AI won't take things over because
mm.
people crave personal connection. The moment you take that personal connection away, it's not good anymore.
Yeah.
The one thing it will do, as you said, is separate the good and the bad. It's going to be like instead of it was like water and oil mixed together. It's going to be like
Yep.
water and motor oil. And it's like just like you're going to be able to spot what
Yeah.
you're going to be able to spot it a lot more in all the crud. I don't know. It's probably a
Yeah.
bad analogy, but
It's already pretty easy to tell. It's already pretty easy
yeah,
to tell like where it has been inserted. I know that like we had a pretty like stringent no AI policy at pedestrian for sure. Like we brought
hmm
that in right away and was just like, no, it needs to be like particularly for brands like Kotaku Au. I was just like, I am not going to be the one who gets like found out using AI on my website,
yeah,
not one that's connected to the Kotaku brand in any way. I will
mm,
never hear the end of it. Like my personal feeling is that
yeah,
I don't necessarily want to use it at all in anything that I do. I want my shit messy. I want my shit to be like in a human way. I want like that human touch as you said. I want that human touch in it and I want people to be able to tell right away that that's come from me. But
yep,
even on the other side of it, even on the professional end, I was just like, no, we're not going to use it. We're not going to touch it. Like as far as like particularly commercial media went, I was like,
mm,
I don't want it to have a place here, but it's
yeah,
coming whether we want it or not. Like even in over the weekend, Google added its Gemini tools to the Google Workspace stuff, and you can't actually
yep.
remove or opt out of the Google of the Gemini tools unless you get on to support and ask them to give you access to
To
those
remove it.
options.
Yeah,
And then you have to go in and
mm,
tick the boxes that turn it off. It's like as many hoops as they can throw at you to turn that stuff
yeah, right.
off. Wild times. That
Yeah,
was a bit of a
it is
tangent.
wild
Sorry.
times. It's yeah, no, it's and like I completely get it. Like especially in your position, like it is a major threat. Like, and it is for a lot of people in journalism, it's a threat. So it's I completely get it, and like I
Mm.
always feel uncomfortable telling people that I use it. It's like, well,
That's the thing.
I,
It's
it
already
helps me in a lot
how
of
fast
avenues.
has it become a dirty word? Like it's
Yeah,
crazy.
well, I mean, it was a dirty word from the like within like a few months. Like I remember, so where I work, we do like security systems, and we
Mm.
did a post where we talked about AI something, and it wasn't even related to generative AI. It was just
Yeah.
things have had AI in it for a long time. AI is
Yeah.
like an old tech, right?
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, AI in the comments, and I was like, wow, people really don't like AI, and this was like a year ago.
Yeah.
And
No.
it has become a dirty word, but I think the intention is what is the main thing. So I don't
Mm.
have the intention of using AI to replace people's work, or
Yeah.
like I would rather still have a human do the work. AI just helps make that work easy.
Mhm.
That's how I envision AI, and I think that's how you can make someone's content from good to great
Yeah.
using AI, and that's what I care about is like good quality content.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily like as long as the content and it's helping someone is good, and that's what's important. Whereas
Yeah.
most of the AI slop that people are producing, like even like Sora, I don't see a
Mhm.
use case for it really.
No,
It's at its current state. Like people are like you're showing someone like a made up videos. Like how does that help someone? Like
that's it. Like, it's just and there's yeah, totally. There's use cases for it. My sister, is a photographer in Brisbane. She has her own little YouTube channel doing bullet journaling, and she'll use AI in her, photography job. I think it's all part of the Adobe suite now. Like, there's all,
yep,
AI tools that can speed that process of editing photos up for her, and so that's a huge that's a massive benefit. That's a massive time
Yeah.
save for her. I can see the benefits of that. It's yeah,
Mm.
it's definitely like many of my issues stem from the generative side for sure, where it's just like,
Yeah.
no, 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 no,
Where
don't
it's
take
just
the
like,
fun jobs away.
yeah, literally, it's the
Yeah.
creative jobs that are the fun jobs that I don't think it ever will.
Mm,
I think there will always be a place, and even if it, I think even if it dips for a little bit, where it
mm,
might replace creative writing, the people will start going, oh, this is trash. I
yeah.
want good content again, and
I
so
want the
like
real
the
shit
good
again.
content
Yeah.
will pop up, just like we were talking about before, where YouTube has went through a phase of high polished content, and people are like, I don't want this anymore. I like the rawness. It might like go through that flow. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a interesting field. Kind of on the same kind of topic, or maybe not
Yeah.
same topic, but like how like would you still say someone wants to get into like the journalism? So I spoke to someone recently. They started doing games journalism writing.
Mhm.
Is it something that you would recommend someone getting into now, or would you suggest go on to more video?
I would say video. Like we like I
Yeah.
talked about this with I did a podcast with Junglist, one of the founders over at Good Game on the ABC, not long after we were all made redundant from Kotaku, and like the other editors were on that call. Mark Serrels
Yep.
was on that pod. Alex Walker was on that pod. Um, and like there was a lot of discussion about like, could you in good conscience recommend somebody get into games journalism in 2024? And the answer was honestly, nah,
Mm,
probably not. Like, not unless they were like
mm,
going to video, not unless they were going to content. That has been, I think, the advice for a lot of like kids in particular who've been coming in and being like, I'm going to get into games journalism, like come what may. And it's just like, don't look over here. That's all on fire. You might need to like go in a different direction. Like
yeah.
this feels like it's all falling apart over here. I think you probably need to like
Yeah.
start looking at YouTube. I think you need to look at TikTok, go over that way because it seems like it's easier to sort of build something of your own and like put your own
Yeah.
stamp on it if you want to do it right. And there's a lot of resources to like help you do that. I think there's obviously like there's downsides to it. You don't have like an editor. A lot of like cadet journos come up and
Mm,
become better through having an editor that goes over their work and tells them like, I would change this, I'd probably remove
yeah.
that, this and this will help you make the
Yeah.
piece
The
better, because
editors are the comment section.
that's the thing, right? And like how much can you trust those guys? Like if you're being
Yeah,
driven by
not at all.
if you're being driven by committee, like that's kind of seems like a pathway for we're going to end up straight back at the shouty guys again, like yelling about how video games are bad and like why you shouldn't play it. It's just like I don't know, like it just I feel like I'm doing a lot of doomsaying on this podcast, and I wish that I wasn't, but like there is good to be found in it for sure. Like I promise there is.
I, yeah, I think it's just probably harder to do. At the
Yeah,
same time, though,
yeah,
I think the best videos are probably like what you're doing, where you've written or you've got the journalistic mindset and you're reporting on it in a video format. So you're delivering
yeah,
the same content in a video. It's just, I guess it's harder for people who may not necessarily be comfortable in front of a camera, in which case there are ways around it.
totally,
Um,
totally. I get
you could just
I've
do
brought
faceless.
Yeah, I've brought skill up already, like on the video. I think Ralph has got like one of the best like formats for doing that kind of thing. Ralph like will show up on camera, and certain things like their podcast that they do, frames per second. He will appear on that like face camera on.
Mhm.
But for most of their videos, particularly where they're doing like news and editorial, he doesn't have his webcam on at all. Like it's just like they've cut
Mm,
together video game footage over the top of his narration of the stories for the week, and I feel like that's a good one to look at. Like he's been very, very successful with that over the years and built like a real meaningful platform for like games journalism in a normal tone of voice. And he's Australian. So like
yeah.
again, like you can see how we're able to do that from here in Oz and still reach a global audience and still from time to time talk about those smaller Australian games, because God love him, he still finds a way to do that
Well,
too.
that's probably the trick to it, is like balancing talking about global content and then like trickling in the Australian content in there.
Yeah.
That's
Just
probably where it's
sneaking
going to
our
have to
stuff
go.
in there. Like
Yeah.
that
Well,
feels like
not it.
the best way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's introducing because you're going to build an audience based on like a global audience, and then, but once you have that audience, you can then introduce them to more niche things within Australia. And I think that's probably the best angle.
Yeah.
So, kind of flying in the face of what we're saying. Well, maybe not flying in the face, but like, what would you like? What would you say that someone who wants to get into gaming journalism? Where's the best place to start?
Oh man. I think if you're still determined to do the blog thing, then like street press kind of stuff is still a great way to get in, or at the very least, get started and get some bylines behind you, because that's really important for building out your portfolio. I One of the
Yep.
first places I went to, I mentioned them earlier. I will always mention them because they were very good to me. Was the AU review. They have a game section.
Yep.
Their editor is Matt Arcari. He's a really good guy. He used to write for me. I've got a lot of time for him. Like hit him up if you're new, if you're looking to like get a few bylines. Hit people like him up and just let him know that like you're looking to do a bit of writing. It's not a matter of like you've got to be willing to do the work. Like you've got to be willing to write some news blogs. And I will say this as well, because there's a lot of young journalists that I've met that like feel like they just want to come in and write reviews and get free video game codes. It's not about that, and it shouldn't be about that. Like you have to be able to do the work before you can get the little perks like that. And I know that
Yeah.
Matt works the same way. Prove yourself
It's
first.
exactly the same with video and YouTube and everything. A lot of people
Yeah,
come in, you put the rewards first and not the. I mean, and that's the thing. You got to put the consumer first. You got to put the person that you're actually creating the content for
yep,
first, and then you
yep,
get the perks.
yep. It also teaches you to work on a deadline. It teaches you like to make sure that like you're delivering on specific content goals as well. Like what is the
Hmm.
purpose of this story? Who is the audience for this story? What's like the news
Yes.
value in it? It helps you develop like all of those proper journalistic skills, and your editor will help you develop those. I do still
Yeah.
recommend doing all of that stuff. I just don't think it's going to take you as far as it once did on like the traditional media route. I think you can
Yeah.
take those skills and apply them elsewhere very, very easily. And I hope that
Mm.
like a lot of young cadet journos will do that as they come up.
Yeah.
I've spoken
Well,
to a
it's
lot
like
of like young journos about that since Kotaku went away, like for
Yeah.
different like uni projects and stuff like that. And I always feel like I'm kicking a puppy. They're always just like, "How? What advice would you give to a young journo?" And I'm just like, "Oh, kid, I'm about to break your heart. Like, I'm so sorry.
Don't do it.
Oh
Go
no."
that way.
Have a like what did Robin Williams always say? Have a backup profession like welding.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's so. I guess we're circling back to this again. Take those skills. So like, and that's something that I think a lot of creators should learn
Yeah.
is to like develop the content plan and flesh that out a little bit more, because there's so many creators on the same. You go, I want to make a video, and that's it. Like you don't like who's the video for? What's the video about? Why is someone going to watch this video?
Yeah.
How does it serve them? And a lot of
Yeah.
people will like create the content without that in mind, and you're kind of just working backwards. Essentially, you're putting you're putting the horse before the cart before
Yes.
the horse,
Yeah.
in essence.
Yeah.
And I see that
100%.
everywhere. But I think kind of we talked about this pre recording. Twitch and
Mm.
Twitch content creators kind of give people this false sense of like, I'm streaming on Twitch, so everything's live. I don't necessarily need to think about exactly what I'm doing, because people just come and watch. When
Mm.
it's SEO related, or like blog related, or YouTube related, like it's people are searching for that stuff, or they're
Yeah.
looking for that entertainment at the time. So you've got to really think about why is someone going to click on that particular thumbnail, and you probably need
Yeah.
to do the same thing for Twitch.
Yeah. And as we know, discoverability on Twitch is notoriously difficult. Like you kind of SEO your way out of that problem unless you're specifically cutting down your own content and uploading it to other platforms to as advertising essentially for whatever the
Yeah,
hell it is you're doing all
you're
day on
promoting.
Twitch. Yeah. Like
And
it's just not everybody can be pirate software. You know what I mean? Like not everybody's going to have that miracle moment on
no,
YouTube Shorts
but
where it just goes
you need,
bananas.
yeah, and you need to have like, and I'll say it. I said this before, and so I talked about this before stream, before we recorded, and I'm going to talk about this now. So a couple nights ago, we are at the Twitch meetup, and there's some people I spoke to who watch this podcast, and we're talking about streaming and stuff like that, and then I proceed to tell them that streaming's a trap at the Twitch event. And I
Again,
think
we're
I might
breaking
have like
hearts,
ruffled
man, left and
feathers.
right.
Yeah. I'm like, so I don't stream anymore. I streamed for a couple of years. And so, me saying that, people could call me out and say like, oh, well, you gave up. Yes, I gave up. Because felt like I was pushing shit uphill. Now, obviously there's the right thing for the right people. If you are happy streaming and you're happy to keep going down that path and it's working for you, that's great. But there's so many people that complain about discoverability, complain that their Twitch is hard and stuff like that and blah, blah, blah. It's because live streaming, in my opinion, is a trap.
Yeah.
If you're... The thing is, there's no discoverability. So people say the way you get big on Twitch is you post everywhere else. You dissect your content, you post it everywhere else, and then you can blow up on Twitch. Well, the thing is, you're probably going to blow up everywhere else, become more successful everywhere else before you even blow up on Twitch. So what's the point of being on Twitch?
Yeah.
that's my thoughts. And it's so
That's
instant gratification.
Yeah,
Like
and that's
it's
before
like
you
the
start
it's like
like
the instant
fighting
gratification.
uphill against time zones and all the rest of it being in Australia. Like it's doubly difficult if you're coming from Oz as well.
Yeah, because you don't have the US market, and the US market makes up a huge chunk of like everything. Like my YouTube videos, 85% of them from US, and it's just
Wow.
So anyway, that's my rant about streaming.
Oh my god. Yeah. How are we feeling about that? How are we feeling about that? Well, I mean, at the time of recording, the TikTok ban has come and gone. I was certainly like, I was ready. I was ready to dive into the analytics and just like, like, oh, how's this going to affect because I mean, predominantly like my viewership on TikTok is Australian, which is very, very good. I'm very happy about that. But there is an American contingent. And I was like, how's this going to affect on numbers if they all go away? And I
It's
woke
like
up
a
this
little blip
morning and was
in that.
just like, well, never mind. We're fine.
Oh,
Shouldn't worry.
it's a joke.
It's a
It's the
joke, man.
biggest joke of 2025. Like, and so there's so many conspiracies out there, and like, I don't know how to make it out. Like it for one, it doesn't make sense at all for the US to get rid of it because so many businesses and so many things. Donald Trump, he campaigned on bloody TikTok.
Yeah,
Like
getting rid of it.
it makes sense. It makes sense that Donald Trump fights to have it back, even though he was saying in 2020 that they should ban it. But
Yeah.
obviously, he's changed his mind in the last 4 years. I mean, 4 years is a long time, but he's been using it. And then so people are like, oh, Donald Trump's just doing this to make himself look good. Well, yes. And then there's people that said that he orchestrated the whole thing from the start. And it's like,
I don't know if he's that kind of a brain genius.
No, well, I mean, to convince your opposition to sign a bill to ban TikTok and then only to turn, I don't know. Like, it's just, it's so whack.
It's so ridiculous.
It's so whack.
Anyway, that was like, a solid like 10 or so hours of content planning and preparing to dive into the analytics and all the rest of it. And then I woke up this morning and was just like, oh, I don't need to worry about that. Great. Cool. We'll just plow on then.
What I found entertaining was like all of the posts that came up yesterday about TikTok's banned. Here's all the things from TikTok, or like, what do we do now? And then like all that content redundant.
Yeah, immediately. Not even 24 hours.
Like their views would have been spiking, plateau.
Just so bad.
Literally. It's like a failed launch, but like
truly, like, I don't know. We will see how this all plays out over the next couple of days, I guess. I don't even think, like, I know that there was other stuff that got caught up in that was owned by ByteDance. Like CapCut is gone. So if you were in the US and editing on CapCut, which a lot of people were, that's gone. And it hasn't come back yet. Marvel Snap as well, also gone because Marvel Snap got banned as well because the publisher of Marvel Snap is ByteDance's gaming division, and so they got Thanos snapped as well.
Crazy.
Yeah, which was unexpected. Even the dev team released a statement basically being like, "Oh, that's surprising. Working on it. Like, we'll get that back for you." Yeah. Those two apparently
that's
not back
shocking.
yet.
Yeah. Wow. Well, interesting.
Yeah.
How would you, from someone in journalism, going from journalism to kind of video content, how would you recommend someone to get started in content creation in general?
Oh man. I mean, for me, it was first things first. It was just like doing it, like just trying it, like
Mm,
getting used to being on camera, getting used to hearing your own voice in the edit. Those were sort of the two big hurdles for me, because I'd never done
yep.
on camera. This is something that comes, I think, much more naturally to the Gen Z kids than it does to me, the millennial, coming like way later to this kind of stuff.
Yep.
It That definitely like broke the ice for me, and now it's much easier. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it, like anything else. um I would say, as I said before, like make sure you're identifying your niche, because it's not enough, particularly in the gaming space. It's so saturated. You can't just come in and be like, no, I'm
Yeah.
just going to do whatever, I'm just going to play whatever. Like,
I'm
you
gonna do
like, I'm just
everything.
gonna do it all. Like, that's not enough. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can't be like broadside of a barning this. You have to actually drill down and figure out what your niche is, carve out the space within that niche, because there probably will already be people there. And then you
Mm,
can start to like build a community as well. Um,
yep. How do you do that?
Moderation,
Like,
well, it's
how would
consistency.
you build your niche?
It's consistency for me. Like, for
Consistency.
the first thing I started to look at was like, I looked for the gaps. Like, what is it that nobody else is doing in the game space, or what is the fewest number of people doing in the game space? And it was, for me, what I felt, and the kind of content that I was looking for and trying and like to consume, was that there wasn't enough people
Mm,
talking about games sensibly, that weren't just screaming into a microphone. It just felt like there was so much of that type of content that it becomes deafening after a while. There's like plenty of people
yep.
doing like long plays and let's plays and stuff like that. And if you've got the time and the patience and the endurance to do that stuff, God be with you. But that's not me. Um, and so
So
for me, I
so on that, I've actually started doing let's play like
yeah, yeah.
content.
How's it
And
going?
it's doing okay.
Nice.
Yeah. Like, yeah, so there's probably a couple of caveats there. So a year ago, made a couple of Baldur's Gate videos that did really well, like over
Mhm.
100,000 views. And so, like, I built an audience. The algorithm started knowing, hey, he does good Baldur's Gate videos.
Yep.
And so, like, at the start of this year, I was like, well, I want to get back into this. I want to do something more consistent, because these
Mhm.
videos were like high effort, big projects, and I was burning myself out trying to make them consistently. It was not possible.
Mhm.
So I needed to do something more consistent. So I'm like, well, how about instead of streaming, I record it and play through it like I was streaming, but the video is
Mhm.
tailored for YouTube.
Yep.
And I was like, well, this is basically let's play content, but I'm trying to like more tailor into like, because people watch VODs, right? People will,
Yeah.
like, a stream will upload a VOD and that'll get like a few thousand, 100,000 views, whoever it
Yeah.
is. So people obviously watch it. So if I'm making tailored YouTube videos that are just longer,
Mhm.
and title them and thumbnail them correctly and make sure that there's some kind of theme and it's entertaining, good quality,
Yeah.
I figured it'll do well. And so far, I
Yep.
mean, they're not hundreds of thousands of views, but like these videos, like 2.5 hour long, 3 hour long videos, and they're getting, like, the first one got like 4,000 views
Hell yeah.
and like 1,000s to 500s for the remaining ones. I'm like, oh, that's actually not bad considering
Not
it's very
bad.
low effort.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
that's a good way to approach it. Like, I did, funnily enough, like, start watching a little bit of that kind of content recently, just while like I'm tidying up the house or something like that and doing my chores or whatever.
Well,
I'll
there you
put
go.
on I'll put on like I put on a video of a guy. He's a city planner in the US, and he
Oh,
basically just does like Manor Lords long plays. It's great. He's really good. Like, he puts a lot of
yeah.
thought into like
That's
how he
cool.
lays out his cities and that kind of stuff. It's very interesting, and it's the kind of thing that like, it's very sort of subtle. It's not very noisy. It's like just putting on like jazz in the background or something like that. You can just pay attention every
Yeah.
now and again, and he's doing something interesting whenever you look up. It's really pretty good in that regard. Which is not to say that it's just like,
That's
oh no,
interesting.
it's nice and ignorable. That's not really the point. It's sort of just like, no, it's something that I can. It's like
Yeah.
watching the cricket. I can just check in every now and again and see where we're up to. It's an ongoing thing. But yeah, there's definitely like there's a route there for sure. It seems like, but again, he's carved out a niche, right? He's playing Manor Lords. That's a very specific
Mm,
city builder game, and he's using a very
yeah.
specific skill set to build that community, that there's a bunch of people
He's
who are just
taking the
like,
two things and he's
yeah, like he's pulling people away from probably like the city skyline audience and being like, oh, he's applying this to like a
mm,
medieval city builder. Let's go and see like what that's about. And he's clearly got experience
that's
in
pretty
this
cool.
field. So let's do that. That's kind of what I was trying to do with my stuff, where I was like, well, I'm interested in the news side of the gaming business. I'm interested in the business of games as well. And that feels like something that not very many people are talking about with much clarity. There's a knowledge
Yep.
gap there as well. Like, not a lot of people really understand the business, the economics of games. And I like talking about that stuff. I like digging into that stuff. I'm the guy who was
Mm.
at Kotaku Au. People walking past my desk and I'm reading through like quarterly financials, because there's always interesting stuff in the quarterly financials. Like, it's you can extrapolate a lot. Not just like, people will go through the quarterly financials and be like, oh, did they talk about, like, did Rockstar talk about GTA 6 in the quarterlies? And it's like, no, no, no. That's not what you need to be looking at. You need to be looking at
Yeah, you
how
gotta look
much
at where
money
the
they
budget's going.
expect. Yeah, like I
Yeah.
wrote a piece
Yeah.
based on like Rockstar's quarterly financials, or like half yearly financials last year, where I was like, I made a cold shot. I was like, I think GTA 6 is probably coming out next year. And the reason I think that is because their projected earnings are $5 billion. Like, you wouldn't be making that
It's like,
kind of a
where do
cold
they
shot.
expect to get that kind of money?
Where is that coming from? Like, where's $5 billion coming
Yeah.
from? So there's that kind of stuff like that. I've kind of found my niche that way, talking about that kind of stuff that interests me.
Mm.
And because
Yep.
there's experience behind it, and because there's a knowledge gap and people are kind of interested in that kind of stuff, or they know my work previously, they'll come along and check that out, and you can start to grow the niche that way. It's easy enough to say find your
Yeah.
niche, but it is a matter of identifying it and then drilling down on it as well, because that's kind of
Yep.
like, particularly on like vertical video, like your TikTok or Insta reels, it's so fragmented now. Everything is a niche, so it's a matter of like
Mm.
finding the niche, but then you've got to find a way to stand out within that niche as well.
Yeah.
It's work. You got to be prepared to put in the work. We're going to keep coming back to that
Yep.
point, I think.
And I think the consistency is probably the important thing. So, like, I've been very consistent with this playthrough, and I have tried playthroughs in the past on YouTube and given
Mhm.
up. And then obviously the videos don't do well because I think people like want to see that there's more to see
Yeah.
when it comes to playthrough content. So it's like, I guess it's like that with everything. You want to need to be consistent to show people that, hey, this is what I do.
Yep.
This is what you can expect. On that niche topic, so I think a good way to think of it for anyone who's kind of stuck is like, think of the things you're interested, and think of the best way you can kind of smash them together,
Yeah.
and that can be like give you your thing. As you said, like, you like your news, you like your games, you like the more financial and the back end stuff of the
Yeah.
businesses. Well, you just crash them all together, and there's your kind of topic. I
Yeah.
spoke to someone at the Twitch meetup about the content she does, and she does ASMR content
Yeah.
as well as video game content. And she's like, oh, I was thinking about doing a YouTube channel for ASMR and then also a YouTube channel for gaming. I
Hmm.
was like, well, why don't you do ASMR gaming videos? Because at the moment they're not combined. It's like, I'm either playing a
Right.
game or I'm doing ASMR with the microphone stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, well, blend them together, like
Yeah.
ASMR Elden Ring. Why not? People
Yeah.
probably would watch it, and
Probably.
then that's a niche.
ASMR Elden Ring is very funny because you're going to get mad and then you can't make much noise. You've got to keep doing that. That's content, baby.
Yeah, 100%. I think it was gold.
Yeah.
So she's like, oh, I'm going to take that and give it a go. So, and I think that's probably it, and it's probably taking the time to sit down and think about those things in a little bit of
Yeah.
detail, and it might
Totally.
come down to like doing it too. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep doing the stuff, and then letting yourself kind of be creative and let yourself go a little bit with it, so you can
Yeah.
find yourself.
In the early days, for sure. Like, feel it out.
Mm,
Like, like, ultimately, you've still got to be interested in the content you're producing too. You've got to make sure that you're
mm,
producing it for your audience and like, who is this for, and making all those determinations. But it does still have to be interesting for you to do as well. I'm ADHD as hell. If it's not interesting for me to do, then I'm not going to do it. Like,
yeah,
it's a
for
problem.
sure. uh, so I guess we're probably getting towards the tail end of the chat, and it's been really good. I feel like I could speak to you for like 12 hours about all this stuff.
I talk a lot. I do it.
No, it's great. I love it. So I gave you some homework to do. So what are your
Yeah.
top 5 tips you would give to someone who's just starting in content creation,
Hmm.
journalism, like in this whole space?
Oh, I wrote them down. Uh, I did write them down.
Tip number one: hold on
Lol.
to your
Off.
notes.
Lol. Tip number one. Yeah, make sure you save everything on your Google Drive. Uh, During this podcast, when we were having the technical issues before, I had to restart my machine and it's taken my 5 points away from me. So I'm just going to rewrite them
Oh
as
no.
we go. Point number one, consistency. Um, so yeah, point number one, consistency. That was something that like I had to like really work on when I first like started producing videos for sure. Like I've come from like working in games media. I was producing like 4 blogs a day of my own stuff on Kotaku Au, in addition to the 100,000 other things I had to do in a given day as managing editor. Um, Beyond just editing Emily's blogs as well as my own, and then working with commercial and all the rest of it. So making sure I was getting
Mm,
my 4 blogs up a day and ensuring that I was still finding the time to write, which was the whole reason I got into the gig in the first place, was really important. Same deal goes with the
yep.
videos. I went for a period over Christmas where, like, through December and into early January, I was just like, I know it's the end of the year, but I feel like I should still be producing something, but I don't have the energy to do it. I don't have the drive to do it. I don't like, I just can't. And then it wasn't until sort of like earlier this month that I got back on the horse and was just like, oh, okay, time to like feel this out, get back into like the run of creating videos again, because it'll only take me, an afternoon to put something together for TikTok if it's fairly short form. Um,
Yep.
I was originally trying to do like video a day, like 5 days a week, like Monday through Friday, and that I found
Woo.
quickly crept up on me. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I was like,
See,
I did
I
four.
did that with a creator dashboard.
Yeah,
I did that with a creator dashboard. And so like obviously I have a full-time job, I have a kid, I've got other YouTube channels that I'm managing. And so I was
yeah,
like launching creator dashboard and I would use AI to chop the videos up.
mhm,
Because I just didn't have the time. I did edit them originally myself and I had no time. So I got AI to
yeah,
chop them up for me and then I'd be able to post them all out. But even then, doing a post every single day, it took it out of me. Like I'd get
yeah,
home from work, I'd have to schedule a post, and then that was like 30 minutes, and I'm like, I was just like burnt. I was
yep,
burnt. So yeah, I've toned that back a lot.
yep. So that
It's hard.
takes me sort of to the second point, right? Like consistency is good, but you can only do what you can do. That's point number two, right? Do
Mhm.
what you can.
Yep.
Um, I'm now at a point where I'm just like, if I can get like 2 or 3 out a week, I think I'm pretty happy with that, to be perfectly
Yeah.
honest. Particularly when I've got to cut to different spec for TikTok wants one thing and Insta wants a different length and Shorts wants a different length.
Yeah.
Like when you've got to put in that extra work to
Yeah.
make sure that they fit each algo, then yeah, let me
Yep.
just do like 2 or 3 a week, and that will suffice. I think
Yeah.
like that divvies
Each
out the
each
workload.
platform usually is a full-time job.
Yep,
It's
that's
usually a
right. And
full-time job managing each platform.
if you're trying to hit all three, it can become like challenging very, very quickly. I'm glad that YouTube Shorts is now up to 3 minutes, I believe, because it was 1 minute, and
Yeah.
that was killing me. That was killing me. I'd record
That
a
was a
video for
killer. That
TikTok
was a
that was
killer.
10 minutes and then have to cut it down to one, get it on Shorts. I'm like, I should just re-record this, man.
Yeah.
Jeez, what am I doing?
So what a killer for me was actually Blue Sky was a killer for me. So I
Yeah.
was actually having great success on X or Twitter, and like because that's where all the creators were, and that's the creator
Hmm.
dashboard. And then so Twitter, I was able to upload longer videos. I was able to schedule them, and it was great. Blue Sky, no scheduling. So
Yep.
like I
Not
wasn't able
yet.
to like batch my content, and so I was like, oh, this is too hard, too much.
Yeah.
And so like ultimately that was the killer. Like it was just because I wanted to commit to Blue Sky, but I couldn't do it all.
Yeah. It's still got a long way to go. I mean, there's still stuff on that platform that I'm like, why isn't this here yet? I can't even send pictures in
Yeah.
DMs yet. Like, what is this? Like, I can't send a gift to a friend. Like, anything should allow me to do that. Like, it's man,
Mm,
silly. What do we got? Point number three. We've
three.
already talked a lot about it, but it is finding the niche, right? Like,
Yep.
it's finding what it is that's going to be your focus and then carving out space within probably what is already an existing niche. I would be very surprised if you were able to find a niche that didn't exist, but if you can, fantastic. for most people, like, what's the old adage, like, um good artists work in homage, great artists steal. Like, a lot of people are just like taking ideas from other people and remixing them and
Yeah.
trying different things. That's okay too. You can start with that. If you have a particular niche that you think is of interest to you, start there. Start
Yeah. I
playing
mean,
around with the type of content.
if you enjoy watching a particular kind of content, like say it's Minecraft or RuneScape or whatever,
Yeah.
make content about that, like the people that you watch,
Yeah.
and do your own spin on it. Like, don't copy it word for word because it's pointless. Like,
Don't actually
you're not
steal.
gonna be able to copy. You're not actually gonna be able to copy it word for word and do better than them.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
That's
You
it.
do it your own way, and then people will go, "Oh, this is Jury's way of doing this particular style." And then as
That's
you're
it.
doing it and you get more comfortable, you'll start going, "Oh, what if I do this and I do
Hmm.
this,
Hmm.
mix them together?" Then all of a sudden you've got an original idea in that
Yep.
niche, and so
Yep.
people start really liking your content. Then,
Yep. Yep. And that's actually pretty neatly brings me to the fourth point, which is content moderation, everyone's favorite. As you begin to build a profile, this was something that Kotaku Au taught me very, very quickly, is that there are a lot of people in the audience who will not be backward in coming forward to tell you all sorts of things that you've never thought about yourself. Some of them will be very nice, a lot of them will be very mean, and you do need to learn. The first thing you need to learn is sort of how to take that stuff on the chin, how to understand that it's
mm,
just some rando on a keyboard somewhere in the world who's just felt the need to blurt this out, and it couldn't mean less to you as a person. It's
yep,
not the sort of thing you should build into your personality and make it part of you. By the same token, you set the tone and tenor for the community that you're building. You need to make a determination on
yeah,
what you are willing to put up with. Like, the block button is free and I urge you to use it liberally. Like, don't
yep,
take nonsense if you're not prepared for more of that nonsense to show up. You have to be able to lead. Like, you're ultimately a band leader in this. If people are coming to your channel and they're coming to your content, then you set the tone and tenor. You have to be prepared to put your foot down. And that might be difficult for some people, but it is a skill that's useful to learn as early as you possibly can. Early days, it's probably not going to be so much, but the moment you have a video on TikTok that goes viral randomly, whenever that magic touch of
yep,
virality finds you, and it will, because TikTok loves to give you a little bit of the juice and take it away, you're going to be confronted with a comment section that maybe you're not ready for. And like, that it
yeah,
will be trial by fire, but you will figure it out. I'm just like laying it out there now. Learn that lesson as early as you can.
yeah.
You set the tone
Don't
and tenor for the community you build.
Definitely don't feed the trolls. That's the one
Don't
thing
feed
I
them. For
like.
God's sake,
I,
don't
I
feed them.
like so sometimes I like just being a smart ass to some comments,
I
and
know.
like and like, that's just how I do. I'll just have like, someone tried to call me a buffoon in one of my comment in a video, and they said buffon, and I was like, one, I like doing videos this particular way, and two, you spelled buffoon wrong, and
Yep.
so like I was like, just kind of taking the piss a little bit. And that's the attitude that I like to go. I
Yeah.
don't usually engage with anything that's too hardcore.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
but at the
I'm
same
kind of the
time, like,
same.
yeah, so like what you said there, like, don't take things to heart, but also cop it on the chin. So like somebody said this in the podcast a while ago. I can't remember who it was, but every time someone comments something, there is, not always, but a lot of times there probably is something to be learnt there. Like someone could say, "Oh, this video is boring," or this video, you like this particular thing of you is annoying, or something like that.
Hmm.
And that's a could be a learning, whether or not you accept it or not.
Hmm.
So like maybe if the video has been considered boring, or maybe how can you make it less boring,
Yeah.
or like you could use it as a way to create feedback, like whether or not they said it and they were being nasty. If they were being nasty, then ignore the nasty, but what can you learn from that to make
Yeah.
it better, I guess, to try and make a good thing out of a bad thing.
Yeah. You can like I say, if you're the band leader in this situation and you're the one who's driving like positive feedback in the community, like if you've shown a willingness to take actual meaningful, positive, constructive critique on board, that
Mm,
begets more of that kind of thing. Like, people are going to be like,
yeah,
oh, this is actually the way to communicate with this particular creator. This is the kind of stuff that they actually like listen to and engage with. We'll give them more of that. People generally
yeah,
will pick up on what you're putting down. If you're just letting the trolls run rampant in your comments, it's going to drive people away. Like
Yeah.
you can't put up with it. There is a certain amount of trolling that you can allow, I suppose. But
Mm,
if it's one of those situations where it's like, well, I want to clap back with a little something something, and it's not a particularly toxic troll, and you know you can get away with it, like maybe
yeah.
it's good to take that and deliver a bit of a public like, listen, here's what I'm make it clear, here's what I'm not prepared to put up with. But for the rest of
Yeah.
them, yeah, I would be perfectly happy to continue blocking and letting them go. It's great. People do love to complain, like, "Oh, you blocked me. I won the argument." It's like, no, dude. Like they used to say on Twitter a million years ago. It's like the block button is great. It's 2 clicks and it lets me get rid of a weird guy. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Like it's the
Yeah.
best feature. Use it liberally.
Yeah. And it's like you don't have to argue with people. Like it's
No,
like you didn't win the argument just because I blocked you. It's just like I don't want to talk.
I just
I
couldn't
don't
be
want that.
bothered, man. Bye bye.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Fifth and final
So number
point
five.
is just enjoy. Like you've got to be able to enjoy it. Like I've found this very, very quickly where it's just like if you're doing what I was trying to do and churn out 5 days video on whatever topic was at hand, then you're going to run out of steam real quick. You're
Mm.
not going to enjoy it. You're going to wake up and be like, ah, man, I don't want to do this, which
I
is
want to get a normal
crazy.
9 to 5.
But that's the thing. That's the most insane thing you could possibly want to do for yourself is go out and get a normal 9 to 5 when you could be doing this. It's much more enjoyable.
Mm.
It's definitely like it's something to always keep in the back of your mind. Like you've got to be able to enjoy what you're doing because that's the difference between a work and a job, right?
Yeah.
How many of us have worked a job in our lives because we have to, or we've worked a second job to support the thing that we actually want to do? It's not work. Work is meaningful. Work is good. Work is worth doing. A job is what you've got to do to get by. This is not what we want your content to become. You want it to be the work. You want it to be the thing that
Yeah.
sustains and fulfills you.
I think the thing like something to think about there, work and a job. So in both cases, really, like well, in work, it really comes down to what you're providing. So I think the human connection is very important. I don't think people give it enough credit. So you're providing something of value to people, and the better you can provide something of value to people, the better the reward you get. Not only just monetary reward as part of being work, but there's the fulfillment side of it.
Mm.
So it's not work. Like I could be getting paid like 60K a year to do content, which is less than I'm getting paid now, but I'd be loving it because
Yeah.
I'm getting fulfillment out of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what is important. It's the fulfillment for what you're doing.
Yeah.
So
100%. But
like
also
you're
get what you're
giving
worth,
something
kids.
back.
Want
Yeah,
more than
true. I mean,
60K.
yes. Yeah. Yes.
Point number 6, get what you're worth.
Yeah. That's a tricky one. That's a very tricky one.
That is a tricky one.
Okay, so final question. This is the bonus question.
Sure.
What would you like to learn more about yourself? Or like yourself
Oh.
or like what's a skill that you'd like to learn more of?
Oh man. Right now the skill that I'm definitely working on is like just learning all of how DaVinci Resolve works as an editing suite. I think it's really, really great piece of software. Like that is an
It's
awful lot
fantastic,
of
yeah.
video editor for free. That is massive.
It's massive. It's actually insane. I don't think
Yeah.
people really appreciate it.
It's insane what they give you for free. Like so many of these places are just like, no, you have to subscribe and give us $15 a month for blah, blah, blah. Adobe nickels and dimes, this kind of stuff. What they're giving away for free in DaVinci Resolve is amazing. If you're not using that program, like DaVinci, like, listen, I'm spruiking get what I'm worth. Like you got some money for me.
Also,
It is fantastic.
DaVinci make all their money in their cameras.
Yeah.
And so the editor is their kind of pathway for people to get into
Selling
that.
you a camera. Yeah.
They've
right.
also got their paid version. Not even selling a camera, like getting people into media. Like it's just the software
gotcha.
is just it's a lost leader, really.
Yeah.
It's there is a paid version of it which just gives you more functionality, but for like most content creators, especially anyone that I know, like unless you're doing high level stuff, you don't need it. You
No.
definitely don't need the paid version.
No.
Like I get
Not to
people
cut
tell me
like TikToks and stuff together.
no. Like people tell me, oh yeah, I use Adobe Suite. I'm like, why? It's like, oh
Why?
well, it's better. I'm like, DaVinci Resolve is like free. You're not paying $30 a month or whatever it is.
Mhm.
and I think it's the loss leader. Not a loss leader. I think it's a sunk costs thing. Like
Yeah.
people are just like they've already committed to it, so they're not willing to change. And it's a bit of a learning
Yeah.
experience, like change. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, if you're not on it, you gotta get on it.
Get
It's
on
just
it. It's
it's
so good. It's so good. Um, that I'm definitely looking to do more of, like learn much more about that program just to like make my own process that little bit easier so I can get through the edit
Mhm.
that little bit easier because as people who work in video know the edit is always the most time consuming as element
How are you with your
of
shortcuts?
I'm still learning, honestly. Like I've got a fair few
Yeah.
down now. Like I'm automatically like opening a new timeline, going straight to vertical and all the rest of it, and that kind of thing when I'm starting. But it's definitely still like for the first little while, I was just like slowly clicking on shit. I'm like, there has to be a better way. And then I saw they've got like
So
that little keyboard you can get. Like, damn.
I would love to get that, but one hack is
Mm.
Stream Decks.
Really? Okay.
So I use my Stream Deck with DaVinci Resolve on it. I've got basically you can program shortcuts to it. So like Control V, Control C. So I
Gotcha.
push my keyboard out of the way. I bring my Stream Deck down, and I use that. And I
Smart.
saw another video recently where they use the mouse buttons for like snip and delete everything,
Yep.
post, delete everything here. So there's a lot of different ways. Because like
Interesting.
the way I look at it and the way I explain it to people with shortcuts is like, have you ever played League of Legends?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So imagine playing League of Legends, but instead of using QWER,
Hmm.
you click on the spell icon and
Right.
then you click on where you. That's what it's like to not use shortcuts when you're editing videos. Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So
That's a good.
you think of the speed difference
Yeah.
that's required. So if you're not using shortcuts, you're playing League without a keyboard.
God. Okay. I got a lot to learn. No, that's definitely like
Yeah.
it's on the list, like for sure. Start building out macros and all the rest of it. Like, how can I streamline this process? Because yeah, it can certainly take a while.
Yeah.
Beyond that, like it's just yeah, I'm still like building out like a lot of the content plan. I built out a content plan when I first started putting videos together 6 months ago after the layoff, and like
Hmm.
I went way overboard. I was just like, we're going to do short form, we're going to do medium form, and there's going to be long form. I'm going to do like a bunch of YouTube stuff. And then, like, 3 months later, I was looking back at that document being like, what an idiot. Like, there's no way we're not getting all of this. Like, man, I bit off more than I could chew with that one. So it's just a matter of like retooling
Yeah.
that doc with like the benefit of hindsight, right? Like understanding like what I am actually able to achieve in a given day, what actually like specific sort of growth milestones do I want to hit. Am I going too deep on it? Maybe, but at the same time, like I come from editorial, so like having that kind of step by step plan has always been really beneficial to me. It may not be for you.
Yeah.
I do encourage having a plan. You can't just wing it forever as far as content goes, but
Yeah.
at least to begin with, yeah, you can wing it for a little while and see how it goes. But yeah, that's a big one for me is just like sort of start dialing in exactly what I want that 12-month stratagem to look like for sure. And then we could start looking at like, depending on how that goes, start looking at like 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year plan.
Perfect. That sounds awesome. Well, David, it's been really, really good conversation. Like I said before, I could talk to you for a long time about all this. But alas, it is the end of the episode. And everybody who's been
Uh,
watching, I hope you have enjoyed this so far. Well, enjoyed it up to this point. And if you have, give it a thumbs up. As you know, it always helps. And subscribe to the Creator Dashboard if you want to learn more. I'll put all David's details in the comment section so you can go and check out his stuff. You're on pretty much
Perfect.
everything, although you're not really active on Twitter anymore.
Not so much. I'm off
Um,
the hell site.
yeah. So check out all this stuff there. Uh, I've actually I think I am following you on TikTok.
Mhm.
Not that I have TikTok anymore, but um, and I've seen your stuff and it is really good. So
Thank you,
go
mate.
check him out.
Appreciate that.
And thank you for coming on tonight, David. You've got a lot of information there to share, and I'm
Mate,
definitely going to
anytime.
be picking your brain more. That's for sure.
Mate, anytime. Invite me back whenever you want. I'm always happy to chat.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much, and catch you later.
Thank you, mate.